Just to provide a little bit of background, the Idaho Code requires the establishment of an area city impact, which is a joint planning area around cities to provide for the logical and orderly growth of cities in the state of Idaho. The area city impact agreements include elements including the adoption of the comprehensive plan to apply within the area city impact, as well as the land use ordinances would apply within that area. That geographic area is generally guided by considerations of trade areas or geographic boundaries or roadways or other factors, and areas that are reasonably expected to be annexed to the city in the future. The comprehensive plan and ordinances that apply in the area city impact could be that it's the county's plans and ordinances, it could be that it's the city's plan and ordinances, or it also can be a combination of something that's crafted uniquely for the area city impact. The Community Development Department was approached this late spring, early summer by a property owner who was interested in replacing an existing single-family dwelling upon a property that was located within the area city impact boundary. Through the existing area city impact agreement that was adopted in 2006, the county adopted the city's non-conforming use provisions that address prior uses that were approved and allowed by law but maybe became non-compliant through future code changes that may have occurred. The city standards that were adopted to apply in the area city impact do not allow for the replacement or expansion of non-conforming uses except in very limited circumstances. However, the county standards do allow for the replacement of current occupied homes, even though they may exceed the current allowable densities on a single parcel of land. Within the area city impact, approximately 90% of that area is zoned ag forest, and generally only one single-family home is allowed per parcel in the ag forest zoning district. The county, which is largely ag forest throughout the entirety area of the county, encounters this situation more often in rural areas where you have family farms and oftentimes multiple generations of families that reside on a single property. So their code does allow for the replacement, expansion, or relocation of existing single-family homes, even though they may exceed the maximum residential density allowed in that zoning district. The concern with the city is that it does appear that the current non-conforming uses standards that are adopted and enforced in the area city impact potentially encourage the division of property to allow for families to enlarge, relocate, or replace aging homes. And so the only way, and in this individual that we were working with, the only way to allow for this replacement of a home that their family had outgrown was to try to subdivide the property and break it up and create a new separate building lot to accommodate their needs. This is oftentimes contrary to the city's interest, where the fragmentation of property near the city limit boundary can impede the city's ability to grow in a logical and orderly fashion. With discussions between city and county staff, we determined that it might be appropriate to adopt the county's non-conforming use provisions within the area city impact, since that much of that area is rural in nature and ag forest zone. The proposed amendment would not result in any additional homes in the area city impact. It would just allow for the potential enlargement, relocation, or replacement of existing homes within the area. The proposed amendment was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, who recommended approval. It is a very minor amendment to the existing 2006 agreement that does replace the nonconforming sections as adopted in the city code to be the counties to apply within the area city impact. And this was also reviewed by the Administrative Committee on July 25th, who recommended approval to the City Council at that point in time. So with that, I would be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
So Jim, as Bill had said, this one run the Administrative Committee.
Yeah, it was
last Monday.
We went through this, and it seems like a pretty straightforward thing to simplify that and improve the situation in the area of impact. So I would move to approve the ACI agreement amendment as presented.
Second.
Question, Art?
Yeah, I just wanted to explore a little bit that the intent seems good, but if a home is going to be moved or reconstructed, would there be the intent that it be moved or reconstructed in a way that wouldn't interfere with future rights-of-way or setbacks that might occur should that area be annexed into the city at a future date?
So the future rights-of-way is a more difficult consideration just for the building permit. So generally, unless the property is being subdivided and there is a dedication right-of-way that's occurring at that point in time, the construction of an existing home on an existing parcel, the owner has the right to really place that structure wherever they choose to. I'm sorry if I try to call the second part of the question.
Setback issue, setback.
They'd have to comply with all relevant setbacks. So even though they may exceed the residential densities allowed on their individual parcel, they have to comply with all other provisions of zoning code, whether it's setbacks and other building heights and other zoning standards.
Yeah, because I was thinking that sometimes when we have projected street layouts going on, that it's an opportunity that if it would constrict the size of the street to the extent that it wouldn't be possible to put a street through. And then if you're going to build or move it, just shove the thing back to allow for full width construction in the future potentially. Just looking down.
And that's certainly something, every building permit that is applied for in the area city impact comes through our department for review, and we can work certainly with the county staff to address those instances should they occur. We are oftentimes talking about very large parcels, with quite a bit of room around them. And so most often, they're not going to be really in a constrained situation where we would see that. And then the setbacks we have present in the I-Forest District are fairly significant. And the lot sizes are generally 40 acres is that minimum lot size. We're dealing with some fairly large parcels that we would anticipate seeing in these
But I'd rather
circumstances.
see kept as one, really, for
Sure.
the reasons you stated.
And that's really the intent, was to facilitate this. And I don't expect we would see a large number, but the county was appreciative if we consider agreeing to adopt this in their city impact to help the residents in the area city impact.
Good question, Art.
Yeah, my question had to do, the question that Art just asked, is that how you addressed it, by writing in non-conforming use provisions? Is that what that language is? That in the ordinance kind of takes care of everything that you said, like all the little details that we can change or not change for setback is put into the language as non-conforming use provisions?
So what we would be doing, we'd be replacing our section in the city code of nonconformities with the county's. And if you do look at the replacement of nonconforming dwellings, it does refer that it must meet all other adopted standards for that development.
So you broadened it? Is that really kind of what you did?
We haven't brought it anything.
Then you made it run the same as the county?
Correct. It
Okay.
would just be
So that you
adopting
used
the
the
county
language that they
standards.
had, yeah.
Right, yes. The language that was included in your packet that we would just be taking out of their ordinance, and that would have become the section of the code that would relate to nonconformities within the area city impact, which is very similar to the city's language for nonconforming uses, with the exception that they allow for that replacement of residential structures, even though it may exceed the residential density limitation of the property.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got it.
Walter, did you have
I have a question for Bill after the vote, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll start the vote with John. Wait a minute. I should say this. Jim made the first, the motion. John made the second to approve the proposed ACI agreement amendment. And so just for clarification, even though it was read that way, John, I'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Thank
And
you.
aye.
Thank you. Okay, Walter.
Bill, there's a comment in the CCNR that, quote, normally this would be incorporated within the upcoming renegotiation of the ACI agreement anticipated to occur through this fall and spring. I believe that the county came to us almost 2 years ago now wanting to talk about renegotiating the ACI, and if memory serves, we told them we weren't ready to talk about it because your department needed to work with their department to work out some language on stuff or whatever. Has any of that occurred, and where are we on renegotiating the ACI?
So the city initiated the conversation on renegotiation of the area city impact when the county was considering adopting an amendment to their land division policies. So we started that conversation and hosted them at a joint meeting. The conversation we had at that point in time was the city had a number of code updates it was working on, really a fairly large, substantial overhaul of our zoning code and the subdivision code. And rather than amend the agreement to adopt our current ones and have to go through another amendment process to adopt the updated codes, that we needed to get that work completed, and that was in the fall of 2013 into early 2014. That work has now been going through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they're coming close to conclusion probably this fall to early spring. So once that major code overhaul is updated, then we would begin the discussion on the ACI. We have met twice with county staff to start the discussion on boundary locations, and we've identified what we think is a good boundary to work with. So they're just waiting for us to update and complete our code adoptions, and then we would start the conversations on the ACI agreement update.
Thank you.